Joe Rogan signs $100 million deal with Spotify for his podcast.
You're like really funny. Everyone tells you how funny you are all the time. And you know how smart you are. Everyone tells you that you just have the best insights. You really should start a podcast.
I could do that.
So you've probably had similar conversations with yourself and thought that you should start a podcast. And I likely agree with you. But at this point, having a podcast is about as rare as finding a Weedle. That was a Pokemon joke, but what I'm trying to say here is that at this point, everybody has tried podcasting or is now getting into the game. And there's so much more to podcasting than people realize, and too few people do the research necessary to make an informed decision as to if they should even start a podcast at all. So that's what this video is really all about, the decision to start or not. I myself have a podcast, but this video, it's not about me. This video is about you, the charismatic, educational, and humorous individual that has finally said to themselves enough times that they should start a podcast. And a lot of you probably shouldn't. So at the end of this video, you will know which camp you fall into, the I should start a podcast camp or the I shouldn't start a podcast. So let's get into it and help you make the right decision. Point number one, podcasting is not all Elon Musk and Kanye West interviews and millions of dollars. And I used the Joe Rogan reference early in the video for a very specific reason. When external people look at podcasting at large, they attach the lifestyle and business that Joe Rogan has built for himself with podcasting. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. Joe Rogan is the exception, not the rule when it comes to podcasting. He was an early mover, which gave him a huge advantage because there was very little competition. He was also a B or C-list celebrity at the time from Fear Factor and his comedy, which gave him a huge advantage with getting on new and influential guests. Plus, every interview was a way bigger deal to the fan base of the people that he had on because they hadn't heard these stories before and podcasting was so new. So people just simply weren't numb to it. They were very excited by these conversations. Joe has also been extremely consistent with his show from the beginning. He's been pumping out episode after episode for years at this point. And he also is someone who truly loves what he does. And you can tell that through every conversation. He deeply cares about every person he has on and the conversations that he's having, and that's exactly why people resonate so deeply with him and his show. And this was point number one for a specific reason. If you're coming into podcasting expecting to be the next Joe Rogan, don't start at all. It's going to take a ton of consistency, and you better love what you're doing and what you're talking about, because if you don't, you won't stick with it long enough to have success. I know it sounds harsh, but I'm really looking out for you here. And the harshness continues with point number two, and that is you're more likely to fail than succeed with podcasting. Here's a crazy podcast stat for you. The majority of shows don't even make it to their 7th episode. And for emphasis, I'm going to repeat that again. The majority of shows don't even make it to their 7th episode. And the quitting piece is really what I mean by failure. I think the only way you fail at podcasting is if you quit or you stop doing the show. And that is failure in my opinion, because you cared more about the listenership or how it was viewed by other people than about actually having the shows and the conversations that took place on the show. People quit for one of two main reasons. The first is they just didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They didn't watch a video like this to actually make an informed decision. Or two, they just expected far more people to listen out of pure ego. They expected that people would be lining up to listen to their opinions. And I hate to break it to you, unless you're someone of influence who already has a following, that's just not the case. And I think we've all seen this post before on Instagram or Facebook. Me and my bestie did a thing. We started a podcast. Go listen to our first episode, rate it, and subscribe, just for it all to be gone in under a month. And this happens so often because people come into it with unrealistic expectations and because they don't truly love it. So understand why you're coming into this, have a very strong reason why, and then you can't fail. When I started my show, I was a senior in university and I wanted to expand my network and learn from other entrepreneurs. So that really strong why was the foundation as to why I ran my show and why I didn't care if people listened, because at the end of the day, I was there for that reason, to network and learn from other people. So if people did start listening and I started to make some money, that was all a bonus, because I would do this right now if nobody was listening. And I think that is an important question to ask yourself before you even get started. Do you love this enough to do it if no one's listening? And if the answer is yes, then you probably should do this, and that will actually give you a better chance of being successful because you're just doing something you love and people will feel that. Trust me, growing a show is not easy. It's definitely possible, but if the passion isn't there, you won't have what it takes to grow the show. Point number three is that gear doesn't matter to a point. At this point, I have some pretty awesome equipment like this microphone and the Rodecaster Pro and a bunch of other bells and whistles, but I really would argue that you don't need those. You just need a certain threshold of quality for this specific reason. If someone is new to your show and say you drive a ton of traffic to it, if the audio experience is too bad, people won't give you the opportunity to actually become fans. So you just need to get it good enough. And you can achieve good enough with a simple USB microphone like the Samson Q2U that you can plug directly into your computer. That will give you good enough audio for people to stick around. Then it comes down to the actual content itself. A lot of people go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars before they even prove that they're gonna stick with it or that the show is worth listening to. So instead of obsessing over gear, get your quality good enough to give your content the opportunity to shine. And again, my budget mic recommendation is the Samson Q2U. But if you do have a big budget and you wanna be a baller just like Joe Rogan, I recommend picking this mic up right here. It's the Shure SM7B, and then something like the Podcaster Pro from Rode, which makes running a show very simple and seamless. But don't obsess over the gear. It doesn't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Just get your content high enough quality that people will give it a chance. Growing a podcast is a bitch. It is a very difficult thing to do, and the biggest reason for that is because one of the biggest flaws of podcasting is the discovery of new shows. Unlike social media platforms that are engineered to get content in front of new people that would be interested, podcasting is far less like that. Think about the shows that you listen to personally. You probably heard about them from an influencer or somebody that you follow, or someone personally recommended the show to you or sent you an episode. That's how the majority of podcasts grow. So understanding that, you want to work backwards from that. How can you become the show that gets recommended when people ask for new shows, or actually gets directly sent from a friend to a friend who they think would be interested in it? So you need to be unique or exceptional. And exceptional doesn't even mean better. It just means different. How are you going to stand out in a very contested place and give people a unique feeling or experience that they haven't had before? That can come in the form of a unique segment that other people don't have, a unique way of offering it. Maybe it's a savage question that you ask. Whatever it may be, you want a means to stand out because you want to maximize what every listener means to you. If someone comes to your show and it's like everything else that they've heard, it's unlikely that they're going to sign up for another show. They probably already have the ones that they listen to. But if they come to your show and it is something new and unique, people love to share those things. They're far more likely to save it, sign up for more, and share it with other people that they think may be interested. So spend some time thinking about, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to be unique? Spend some time, write down ideas and implement them and see how your audience reacts. But unique is almost a necessity when it comes to growing a podcast in 2021 and beyond. I just want to congratulate you for making it this far into the video. You're probably one of those people who should start a podcast, and something else that you should do is like this video for the YouTube algorithm, and because I'll love you forever. So thank you. Let's continue. Point number 5, you need a podcast host. So everyone listens to their podcast in their favorite place, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. At this point, there are so many podcast players, but a host is what allows you to get listed on all of them. So before you can even have your show up and running, you need a podcast host to distribute to all those players for people to find you and listen to your show. And a podcast host is not where you record your calls or make your episodes, but rather it's the point of distribution that allows you to get listed and found. I go more in depth about podcast hosting in my 2021 podcasting guide, which I just linked in the card above. But essentially, you need a podcast host to have a show. And my recommendation is Buzzsprout. It's because that's who I use. I am an affiliate from them, but they're just the easiest product to use that I've come across, which is exactly why I use them. If you're looking for a podcast host, use the link in my description box. You'll get yourself a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan. And if you want to see a few more hosting options, I just linked my top 5 podcast host video that you can check out as well. But you need a host. And a lot of people are confused by this whole subject, but luckily it's very simple to do, and Buzzsprout makes it the easiest that I've come across. Point number 6 is a really positive one. There is a lot of money in podcasting, and that is the primary reason why so many people are flooding the platform, especially influencers, because there is so much money in podcasting for a few specific reasons. Podcast is a very intimate experience. People give a lot of their time and attention to podcasting. Plus, much like the radio used to be, podcasts are very habitual. So if you become one of the shows that people listen to religiously, they're going to listen to your show every single episode. And that's a very powerful tool in the hands of an advertiser or marketer. And because of that, podcast hosts and podcasts in general can charge the highest CPM. So basically, they can charge the highest ad rate based on how many people are listening because of that connection that I mentioned previously. So a podcast can become a goldmine if you're able to build that audience. So like I said, it's not going to be easy, but if you're able to do so, there are huge rewards financially and otherwise for doing it. So now that you're all turned on by the topic of money and getting those Benjamins, the 7th point is the one that I want to stress the most, and it really connects to a previous point here. podcast discovery sucks. Straight up, it sucks. It is hard for people to find your new show, especially new people that aren't driven from other platforms or other marketing in general. So you as a podcaster, if you're looking to grow your show, you have to understand this and think of creative ways to market your show. And the best free ways to grow your show are by leveraging platforms where discovery isn't a problem, like TikTok and YouTube. If you create content and start using video in your podcast, you now have a new tool to help you grow the podcast itself, but it's also giving you more assets aligned with the podcast. This allows you to charge even higher premiums for ads and just opens up so many more doors because you have more leverage. An audience is leverage, and each one of these assets across different platforms gives you a diversified asset class in one single podcast. There's a reason why podcasters love TikTok and YouTube, and it's because of the organic reach that's present there, which basically combats the major problem that podcasts have by themselves. So think about that. How can you go above and beyond and leverage other tools that complement podcasting and the weaknesses that it has? I'm not saying that you need to be leveraging social media. Start with what you can, but understand where podcasting lacks, and that's in discovery. So if you don't have a unique way of funneling traffic and listeners, you're not going to get those listeners that you probably want. But again, if you're coming into this and you don't care about how many listeners, then definitely stick with it and go with it. For those of you that want to make money from this, you need to build an audience, and you should be thinking about that from the beginning if that's one of your major goals. And if you're one of those people, I think video is one of the best tools that you can leverage right from the beginning for free, even from your phone. Start leveraging YouTube for targeted search-based videos, as well as trending topics, and TikTok for predictable virality. TikTok is still new enough that if you post enough things, you're going to get some traffic, and some of those will naturally turn into podcast listeners, and the better your content gets over there, the more that will convert. But this point was really just to emphasize how much goes into this if you want to turn this into a business. You have to go above and beyond because there's so much choice out there and a limited amount of opportunity for new people to find you unless you get in front of them. If you've made it to this point, you're probably pretty serious. And first of all, I'm proud of you. Maybe you should start a podcast. Just come into it with the right expectations and now a better understanding of what you're getting yourself into, and start from a position where you can't lose. I started a podcast 3 years ago and it changed my life. And I know that sounds like a stretch, but it's 100% true. And it can do the same for you. I just want you to get into it for the right reasons so that you become or start off successful. I post consistent podcasting video to help you out with your show. So be sure to subscribe so that you never miss any of them. And I already have a ton of in-depth podcasting tutorials on my channel to help you out as well. So on the note of growing your show and podcast discovery, I'm personally looking for more shows to listen to. So I'd love to hear about yours. Let me know in the comment section down below the name of your show and what it's all about. Can't wait to check them all out, and I'll see all of you behind the mic. Peace.